Gossip is things that can rip churches and families and people apart. Gossip is like a caterpillar. You start with one block and then someone adds something to it and to it and to it and to it and to it. Eventually you've got this massive caterpillar, but nothing of it's real. So as you guys know, we've been going and we've been talking about our series on Starting Point. So this morning, I want to preach on something else as part of it, but my next one is living open book lives. What does it mean to live an open book life? Who believes that they're open books? Who wants to be open in every area of your life? Do we really want to? Do we really want people to see the good and the bad of who we are? Or do we pretend? How often do we pretend? How often do we say to people, I'll be vulnerable, I'll be open, but only that far? Because as soon as people get too close, what do? We put up fences. We go and we put up walls. We're like, you can come close, but only that close. I don't want you guys to come all the way. And you see, the thing is, God calls us to live unhidden lives. The kingdom of God does not grow behind masks. Jesus lived so much so as an open book life that he laughed, he wept, he prayed, he was betrayed, and he even forgave publicly. He forgave people publicly. He allowed Judas to betray him in front of everyone. Because that's the Jesus that we serve. And so how do we live that? Jesus showed us that holiness and honesty is not our actual enemies. The world teaches us to protect ourselves. The world teaches us don't allow people in, because what happens is if you allow them in too close, they're going to hurt you. Who's ever allowed someone in and been hurt by them? So one of the statements that Kim and I have used over the years is, once bitten, twice shy. Right? But is that truly living the way that God lived? Think about Jesus. Think about the apostles. How did they live? Paul the apostle is the greatest example of people in the Bible. What happened? He was there and he wrote in one of his letters and he says, everyone has abandoned me. Everyone left me. How many times does that actually happen? In Matthew 16 verse 25 it says, whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Matthew 16:25. Our lives are not our own. We don't live for ourselves. We don't live for others. We live for God's kingdom. We live for one another because it's about Him. The word vulnerability. Whenever you say that to people, they freak out. I don't want to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is the courage to actually risk love. It's actually to risk loving one another. And sometimes what it does, it can actually mean misunderstanding you. Who's ever been misunderstood? Who's ever felt like people don't really know who I am? You say something. I remember when Kim and I just got married, so I come from an Afrikaans background. Kim comes from an English background, and even though we lived in the same city, we grew up in pretty much the same place, our idea of things and our understanding of things were very, very, very different. So I, in Afrikaans, would say something to Kim, and she would be like, this isn't nice. This is horrible. You being mean. And I'm like, but that's not my heart. Because in Afrikaans culture, we say things the way it is and the way we understood it. But it's taken Kim and I years to start understanding, to be able to actually work with one another, to be able to build together in the marriage that God has put us in. And the word vulnerability comes from a Latin word which means to wound. So what does that mean? It means opening yourself up to be wounded. Who likes that idea? We're like, no, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be hurt by anyone. I don't want to be wounded by anyone. But to be vulnerable is to open the place where you could be hurt. And that is the exact place where grace actually enters. Think about it. When we actually bear all of who we are with one another, what happens is people start becoming safe. For all the guys coming to our life group on a Wednesday night, you spending time with one another. What is the first thing that happens in a life group? Suddenly, you start feeling comfortable, right? You arrive and you're like, okay, I feel a bit more comfortable with these people. So after a little bit of time, you start trusting one another, right? That's why we do life group. Because when we have life group, church is wonderful, but when we come in on a Sunday, we can put our faces up, we can say everything's great and wonderful and glorious, and we go home, but there is no real in your life, in your face. But when we get into each other's homes, when we get around the table, when we start spending time, when we're forced to connect with one another, what it does, it creates that true, authentic relationship on one-on-one. Because vulnerability is not oversharing. It is honest openness in the safety of love and truth. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. You see, when we become vulnerable with people, we actually show them that we're human. We actually say to them, I make mistakes, I'm broken. And the thing is, we try and hide ourselves. But we live in a culture of self-protection. Build walls, put up fences. Don't allow people to know who you really are, because the world is gone and they've taken what we have had and what we've spoken to people, and they've taken it and used it against us. You see, this mindset basically builds fortresses around our hearts. But the walls that keep pain out also keep healing out. And in Proverbs 18 verse 1 it says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Isolation might seem safe, but what it does, it slowly suffocates joy. It slowly kills you. Suddenly, you feel all alone. I was sitting yesterday, I was actually sitting and I was reading while the kids were ice skating. Last night, I was actually sitting and I was reading an article about this woman in England. For 40 years, she lived on a farm by herself, without running water, without electricity, without any form of communication. She would go out and she wore the same clothes for over 40 years, this lady. And she would walk in the deep snow, go and actually draw water out of an actual spring to take it home. She would feed the animals. She would plant her own crops. She would do all those things. And in 1973, they discovered that this woman lived in England for all those years without even anyone even knowing that she was there. Because what happened was her dad died, mom died, brothers, sisters, everyone died, and she was left completely alone. At the age of 65 was the first time that she lived in an apartment with central heating and running water. At the age of 65. And the thing was, this woman never had anyone to talk to. They eventually made a reality show of her life where they recorded her. And the most remarkable thing for her, which everyone said, is she never complained about where she was in, because she knew a job had to be done. We have never, ever been called to live in isolation. We were never called to be by ourselves. God says to us right in the beginning, He goes and He creates all of the animals. Then He creates Adam, and He says it is the only thing God said. He said everything was good. The sky was good. The plants was good. The animals were good. The sky was good. But the one thing God said that was not good, He said that there is not one man. It's not good for man to be alone. Because we've never been called to be by ourselves. We're never called to live on an island on our own. God's called us to be in relationship. And so what happens is kingdom vulnerability means giving ourselves away. And I thought this was quite amazing. Jesus let Judas close enough to kiss Him. Peter close enough to deny Him. Thomas close enough to touch His scars. And He risked pain so that others could find peace. In John 15:13 it says, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for your friends. Vulnerability means it's costly. It will cost you something. So many times, Kim and I, we've been in ministry for 15 years. We've walked this journey, and you know what? We've been hurt multiple times. Multiple times we've been hurt. But you know what? Kim and I always get up, and what we do is we constantly forgive. We constantly love. We constantly care. We constantly have people in our lives because we realized it's not about us. It's about the King and the kingdom. It's who we live for. We live for Him, not for ourselves. We've got to learn to choose wisely. Don't just share anything with anyone. Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Be careful who you speak to. As we grow as a church, as we start spending time with people in the church, you know what? I become a guy, I carry my heart on my sleeve. They're rolled up right now, but I carry my heart on my sleeve. People know who I am. And I'm very vulnerable because I've never hidden anything. You can ask my wife. And I've got myself in trouble before because people have hurt me. Because when I trust you, I share everything with you. Why hide it? Why only tell you little bits of who I am? I'll tell you who I am from day one. You either love me or you hate me. It's one of the two. But the thing is, the more I grow, the more I get to know you, the more I'm in your space, I want you to be the same with me. But choose carefully. There's a scripture that says, you don't throw your swine to the pearls. I mean the pearls to the swine, all right? You don't just throw stuff out to people. You learn to share things in your heart with those that you trust. And that's what a church is supposed to be. But how many times do we get hurt in the church the most? Because we think and we feel it's supposed to be a super safe space. But the church is, people walk into church and they become judgmental too quickly. Oh, you don't dress the right way. Oh, you don't worship the right way. Oh, no, you didn't greet me the right way. Oh, you didn't park in the right parking lot. Oh, no, you changed the chairs again. Get used to it. I change chairs all the time. Get used to it. Our house is never, ever the same.
Very true.
Ask Kylie. From the time we've moved into our house, it's never been the same. We move things around all the time. Not because we're bored. It's just we like doing it. But the problem with us as people, we get to this place where we want to control it and put it in a box. And God doesn't work like that. Imagine the Israelites in the desert. They've just unpacked all their tents. Imagine having this tent. It's taken you 4 hours to put it up. You've just put all your dishes out. You've just made your bed. It's all great. And God says, tomorrow morning we're leaving. How would you feel about that? Most wives would throw their toys out the cot. The husband would be like, oh Lord, now I've got to do this all again. But that was what Israel did for 40 years. They moved wherever God wanted them to go. You see, Jesus modeled layers of relationship. He had crowds. He had 70. He had 12. And then what he did is he had 3. There was 3 people that he built with. 3 people that he gave his life to. Because you see, we as people, we don't look for charisma. We've got to look for character. What does it mean to have character? Character is the secret foundation that carries everything of who we are. I want to say to you, one day with us in this church, we are going to have guys up here that's preaching. And we might have a guy up here that's incredibly boring. He might just be preaching to you like this, and it's going to be like really boring. But you know what? If that guy's got character, I'll let him preach every Sunday. Because it's about character. It's not about charisma. It's not about how you look to everyone else. It's how you look to the Lord. Number 2 is mutual submission. Healthy friendships go both ways. They go both ways. You only become vulnerable with someone when they're vulnerable with you. When you open yourself up. Number 3, you need to have peace in your heart about who you share what with. Because the thing is if you don't have peace in your heart about what you're sharing with that person, rather don't share it. And time tests trust. A lot of you guys sitting here this morning, you've known Kim and I for 2 years, right? Imagine we did what we did here 2 years ago. Would most of you have come with us? Not a chance. Because you had no idea. Tina's the only brave one that would have come with us. But 2 years ago, we didn't have currency. In the God's kingdom, what happens is we build currency with one another. We look at people's character. We look at their lives. We let them come into our family spaces, into our homes. And what we do is as we build that character, what happens is they build trust with one another. Todd, do you trust me? Donna, do you trust us? Why do they trust us? Because you know what? One Saturday night, we got a phone call around 7 o'clock. Guys, there's something we need to deal with. You know what Kim and I did? We got in our car and we went straight to them. Not because we were forced to, because we wanted to. Because we cared enough for them to actually do it. Because we don't just care for them, we love them. And each one of you guys sitting here this morning, every single one of you, I want to let you know, when I send you a message and I invite you to church or I invite you to life group, it's not because I want numbers, it's because I miss you and I care for you. Because I miss you when I don't see you. Many times we'll phone Alethea. Alethea, what you doing? I don't know. We got food. Come eat. Because we miss her. Kylie comes to our house. When I don't see Kylie for 3 days, it feels like I'm not seeing one of my daughters. It's because I just love being with people. I love being in your space. I'm spitting at everyone. Luckily, there's no one in the front row. But the thing is, when we want to spend time with one another, when we grow, when we build, when we invest in one another, what happens is there's relationship and community that starts. Because that's church. What it looks like for us in a church community. When a church walks in this kind of openness, conversations replace gossip. Conversations replace gossip. Because we live open lives. There are no secrets amongst friends. Right? Prayer replaces pretense. Instead of me saying, I'll pray for you. Really pray for that person. Really, really do. Tears replace tension. Who's ever walked into a church and you can feel the tension in the air? Right? But what happens is when we start actually when we start coming into having tears, when we start crying before the Lord, what happens is walls get broken down. Joy replaces judgment. What is joy? This morning when we were worshiping, I felt we needed to have joy. I was kind of like, Lord, how are we going to push this? Because I felt there needed to be a breakthrough, but I thought, Lord, we'll do this later. We're going to get there. Because sometimes we've got to push through those things. And the best thing is at the moment, that's why I said to you when we started, we are a small little church right now. We're a core group of people. And you know what? When God gets it right with us, others will follow. Others will follow who we are when we get it right. One thing in our church I want to say to you, and this is something that I really want to say, but before I get there, fire always falls on altars, and altars are places of exposure and surrender. The altars of our hearts need to be open. Fire falls when we are open, when there's nothing hidden. We never weaponize vulnerability. Never ever use something that someone has said to you against them. And in this church, we won't do that. If you come to me and you tell me, if Jason comes to me and says, I'm a mass murderer, I have killed 40 or 50 people, I won't weaponize it against him. I'll be like, bro, I'm going to pray for you. Have you walked it out? What is the process? Let's walk through this. I want to say to you, when someone risks honesty and when we risk openness, heaven listens to what we say. We stand on holy ground. That moment is never to be used as ammunition. Proverbs 11:13 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person can keep a secret. But you know what? When we share our lives with one another, we won't have secrets. When someone comes to you and says, I want to tell you something, but don't tell them, you don't listen. The moment, and I want to encourage you guys to do this, if someone comes to you and says, I just want to say this to you about Jason, you're like, oh, just hold on quickly. Hey, Jason, this person's got something to say. Can we quickly say it somewhere in front of them and then it's dealt with? You know what it does? It immediately kills gossip. And because gossip is things that can rip churches and families and people apart. Because you see, what happens is gossip is like a caterpillar. You start with one block and then someone adds something to it and to it and to it and to it and to it. Eventually you've got this massive caterpillar, but nothing of it's real. And it's destroyed a person's life. God's going to keep us accountable. To hold someone's story is to hold their heart. Handle it with reverence. Handle it with reverence. And then I've got 4 R's that I want to talk about. I've preached on this for years. I heard this the first time when I was in youth. And the words are real, relevant, radical, and relational. 4 R's, not 3. Authenticity is the fruit of safe vulnerability. The freedom to be the same person in private, in public, and in the presence of God. You know what it is? It's truth with skin on. Psalm 51:6, surely you desire truth in the inner parts. A church that is authentic will always, number one, be real, honest before God and people. We don't stage joy, we share it. We admit it, we find others, and we give them hope. Number 2 is being relevant, which means the gospel touching everyday life. Jesus used fishing nets and fig trees. We use stories and struggles. Number 3 is being radical, is not being weird. The word comes from a word called radix, which is the root, which means the root of faith, which means coming back to Jesus. It's about Him. If we ever go away from making it all about Jesus, we've lost the plot. It's all about Him. Number 4 is relational, means love lived out together. We listen before we lecture. We include before we impress. We walk with before we preach to. In Romans 8 verse 19 it says, creation waits for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed. And our honesty with one another becomes the bridge of healing. We need to build bridges. But how many of us burn bridges? It's easier to burn a bridge than to build a bridge. But when we build bridges, we need to be able to build a bridge that can carry the weight of our conversations. You can't build a rickety bridge when you're trying to deal with someone's marriage. You've got to build a bridge. You've got to show people that you've got a good marriage, that your life is together. Before you speak to someone about your kids, you've got to get your own kids sorted out. Because you have to have currency in God's kingdom. And it doesn't happen overnight. I want to play a song quickly. I want you guys to listen to it. Quite an interesting song, eh? About the city on a hill. And we look in Matthew 5:14, it says, the city on a hill cannot be hidden. See, this song is a parable, basically, of what happens when fear and judgment replaces fellowship. Don't you think that's interesting? You see, the church was never meant to be a collection of locked rooms. When we live authentically, our light returns. The poet is a symbol of worship. The prophet speaks the truth. The healer brings compassion, and the soldier brings courage. And so what happens is, when we realize that God has put us together to build His kingdom, to flow together, what happens is we relight the lamps within us. And how do we do that? Number 1 is we open our doors. Number 2, we open our hearts. Number 3, we open our hands. And number 4, we actually open our mouths. Because the poet sings, the healer tends, the prophet speaks, and the soldier guards. And what happens is God takes us and He says to us, I want to build into you. And we spoke about vulnerability, and now we speak about accountability. What it is accountability is that I give you permission to remind me who I am when I forget. Don't you think that's a cool statement? I give you permission to remind me who I am when I forget. Who are we really? So many times we put pretension on. So many times we try and hide who we really are. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 and 10 says, 2 are better than one. If either falls, one can help the other up. Healthy accountability is never controlled, it's care. And the heart of accountability is this: it's always invited, it's not imposed. I want to invite you to come and talk to me. I want to invite you to allow me to speak into your life. I want to invite you to speak into my life. If you see me doing anything that you think, come talk to me. I might take it, I might not take it at that moment. But I will pray about it and say, Lord, is that true? It's invited, it's not imposed. It's rooted in love, not in fear. And it's always motivated by restoration. Galatians 6 verse 1 says, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. It's us going to one another and saying, you're drifting, come home. Or you're shrinking back, press in. It's not judgment. It's actual journey in love. And the pathway to this is dying to ourselves. Stop worrying about yourself. Stop worrying about preserving yourself. Stop worrying about looking good to others. I've forgotten that long time ago. When I was 16 and 18, I thought I was the hottest guy that lived. I gymmed. I had every muscle in the right place. I'm 45. Gravity's winning. And you know what? I still have a beautiful wife that loves me every day. Shannon tells me every day, Daddy, you've got to keep your dad bod. Don't lose it. But the thing is, we need to start calling the gold out in others. Because imagine if you go up to someone and say, bro, I really love you. You mean the world to me. How much will that change them? When people feel special, when they feel like they are actually a part of, it changes how we see things, right? It's not self-hatred, it's self-surrender. Paul said, I've been crucified with Christ. And this is something that I had a friend one day who told me that he was a co-pastor with me. He was leading another congregation. And he came to me and I was very offended with the statement. But the more I think about it, the more I realize how true it is. He said to me, Jaco, my job is to lead you to the cross so that you can die. My job is to walk you to the cross so you can die. That's a hard one. Because when we die to our own selves, to our own wants, to who we are, God can do something. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition. Value others above yourself. Jesus washed feet before breaking bread. He forgave before being asked. And he fed others before he ate.